everyone, welcome to the TMS podcast. And I'm Monika Rajput, founder of TMS. And today we have Abdel with us. So he is a senior cloud developer advocate at Google, keynote speaker, and the Cube astronaut. That is great, Abdel. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm also great, and I'm really grateful that you are here with us and we are recording this podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So before jumping into it, into this podcast, I just wanted to know. Let's start with how you get into this tech.
Right, so if I get $1 each time somebody asks me this question, I would be I would be rich. So for the background, I am originally from Morocco, born and raised. Studied there all the way until 2013, essentially. I studied and work actually in Morocco. So I followed like a typical traditional path. I had a little bit of, I don't know, the traditional path is like, you do your high school and then you do your bachelor and you do your master's and all these things. I did the master's technically, but up to the point where I integrated the university to do my master's, I tried a bunch of other things. I was in like a lot of different kind of trade schools, we call them in Morocco. They're like schools where you can study to become a professional, like a plumber or an electrician. I was just a computer person. So I did that for a while. Got my master's. Started working in Morocco for like a startup for about 2-3 years. My master's is in software engineering, but I never really worked as a software engineer. I started my career in a data center. So I kind of started as a DevOps person before even DevOps was actually a word that people used. From there, 2013, I got contacted by Google. They got in touch. I interviewed, and I joined in the data center in Belgium. So Google has a large data center in Belgium. So I started there, worked there for a few years, and then moved to Sweden, where I'm based right now. I did a little bit of everything, including consulting, including engineering, and now I'm a developer advocate, as you said. That's my current title.
Yeah, that's so great. Like as you said, from Morocco to Sweden, that's the whole journey you have been. So I just like you also mentioned, you have interviewed for the Google. So can you just tell us more about how was that experience?
So that was 12 years ago. So obviously it's quite different than how we do it right now compared to 12 years ago. But it was quite long. I think I had in total 7 interviews. There was 1 recruiter interview, 2 online interviews, and then I traveled to Belgium, and then I had 4 on-site interviews. So I think we still do this today, but I think we do either everything remotely or we reduce travel, at least for candidates. But back in the days, I think right now it's still as complex. Like it's still the same number of interviews. It's just we do it in a more optimal way. Experience, it was good. It was quite tough. There was a lot of smart people interviewing me. There was a lot of tricky questions. Um, um, at the time when I was interviewing, the job I was interviewing for was very, very focused on like Linux system administration, Linux internals, and networking and system design. So there was actually quite a lot to study. I spent like a month basically working during the day and spending my evenings kind of preparing for the interview. So yeah, it was a good experience, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I know this is a very hectic process if you have to, interview for some specific role. But what do you think? So what helps the most, your previous experience or the prep you were doing?
I think a little bit of both. I think I'm a firm believer that generally speaking, it doesn't matter what you're interviewing for or which company you're interviewing for. Having some very good understanding of fundamentals of computer science helps a lot. So knowing the basics. I happen to be on Linux since I got my first computer when I was 14. So Linux for me was not a problem, right? But the networking part was quite challenging because it's quite like the interviews are quite detailed and quite deep. But because I had that fundamental knowledge because of the background at university of what we studied and also all the just out of curiosity, like studying, and I also worked a little bit as a freelance when I was a student in different jobs. And one of them was actually setting up networks for companies. So I did have that basic understanding that helped me at least understand the question and be able to answer it, and if not, ask for clarification to be able to like kind of narrow down the questions. The thing with Google interviews is that they are a little bit of a mix between very, very pointy questions, very specific questions, but also very open-ended questions. And it's the open-ended questions that are quite tricky, because open-ended questions basically means you're asking somebody a vague question, and what you are trying to see is not only how technical, how good technically they are, but also how good of a logical thinker they are, right? And so at the time when I was interviewing, for example, one of the questions was troubleshooting. So troubleshooting is a very tricky thing, right? So like, how do you ask somebody, how do you troubleshoot a broken server, right? So a bit of the fundamentals, a bit of the preparation, because that kind of refreshed my memory about the stuff that I probably forgot from my university time. And also a little bit of logical thinking, I would say. Like the combination of these three things helped.
So, like as you said, that's a great question. So, like how you can troubleshoot that. That's a really great question. You just get to know what people does this person really worked on something or not,
Exactly. So
right?
that allows you to see if, like, to kind of judge or assess the logical thinking of the candidates, but also it allows you to assess their ability of like asking follow-up questions or narrow questions. And this applies both to like troubleshooting questions, but also to like system design questions. So if you're asking somebody to design a distributed system that handles X amount of requests per second, blah, blah, blah. I mean, realistically, in 45 minutes, you're not going to be able to do all of that. So you have to, as an interviewee, you have to be able to ask questions to try to narrow down the question. To like, you don't want to like answer a vague question. You want to try to answer a very specific question, right?
Yeah, so can we like you have explained this very well, but can we just mention just 3 points or three liners that everyone should keep in mind? Okay, if I'm going for any interview, not just for the Google, but for any interview, so what are the three things that he or she should have in mind that okay, I have to do or I have to go in this path?
So don't be afraid to ask to repeat the questions for sure, or to ask for clarifying the question. If the question is vague and open-ended, don't be afraid to ask follow-up or to narrow the question. And the third is try to be as verbose or as detailed as possible in your answers. It's preferably better to be more detailed and provide as much details and have the interviewer ask you to like stop or to like like go different direction than to not give as much details and end up failing the interview.
Yeah, that's a great like advice. So hope everyone will follow this. So I like you are working on more of Kubernetes and you
Mhm.
have 15 plus experience in this. So what do you think? So what has changed? How Kubernetes then and now? Can you just compare what has changed and what's the main thing that people misunderstood still and they really need to know? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, just to clarify, I have 7 years experience on Kubernetes. Kubernetes itself is 10 years old or 11 years old technically. I have 7 years experience working on it. So, I mean, what have changed a lot, right? So when I started working on Kubernetes back in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
it was all about running like backend systems. Kubernetes comes from Google, and it comes as an inspiration. It's not similar, but it's inspired from the way Google runs internally our systems, which is a system called Borg. There is a white paper about Borg if people are curious to read about it. It doesn't go into details of how Borg works, but it explains how distributed systems are done at Google, right? And so the same way Borg is an orchestrator for all the Google internal systems, Kubernetes is an orchestrator for containers, right? So initially when it was designed and released, it was designed and released to run backend systems, right? Like, so backend apps, APIs, things like that, right? Front ends, whatever.
Yeah.
Very slowly over time, there was a need to start supporting also like data sciencey type workloads. So like data workloads. So that would be jobs, batch workloads, high performance computing workloads, things like that, right? So not only backend systems that run forever, but also jobs that have a known start and end date, right? Or a known start and end time. So that gave birth to things like the job API, the cron job API. There's like a lot of APIs that was introduced into Kubernetes. And then the thing with Kubernetes is that Kubernetes is not it's not a vacuum system. It lives in an ecosystem of multiple other tools around it, which is what we call cloud native tools, right? And so this ecosystem kind of go hands in hands with Kubernetes, like more like the moment Kubernetes release support for a new feature, there is like tons of other abstraction layers that just pop up, to take advantage of those feature, but make it easier to use them, right? So in the data pipeline workspace or space, there will be things like Kubeflow and Q and tools like that. So and now it's all about AI. Like the number of Kubernetes itself, the project, the open source project, is split or organized into this thing called SIGs, special interest groups, and the number of SIGs that are popping up that are dedicated to tackle specific AI challenges, like things like there is a working group inference, there is a working group device management for everything that is accelerators. There is now a working group AI, which is also being spun up, or I don't remember if it's a SIG working group, one of them. So essentially, there is like a huge interest and push toward making Kubernetes support AI workloads, because they are very specific, very special workloads that doesn't function the same way like a backend system work. So the evolution from just running backend systems all the way into data pipelines, all the way into AI, and of course, all these other, I would call them niche, like edge computing is another one, disconnected systems is another one. So like Kubernetes itself have been evolving. I think fundamentally the core of Kubernetes haven't changed much, but the number of use cases that the system can support have been evolving over time. So we're definitely living in a very interesting space now, where the AI is kind of pushing Kubernetes also super forward. I mean, just look at how many of those like AI companies, Gen AI companies, are using Kubernetes to train and serve their own models, right? It's insane. Everybody pretty much is on Kubernetes, right? So yeah, it's been evolving quite interestingly. And since I work with it, and also we do the podcast, which allows us to interview people, we are like kind of at the forefront. We kind of see what's going on. Like we have a first-hand look into what's going on.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Like, I am a data engineer. I work with the data more often. So it's more of like when I see what we were doing 5 years ago, mm, it was cloud, but we didn't that much talk about the Kubernetes. But now it's like, okay, how we can move our data pipelines into the Kubernetes, how we can use the KTs, right? So that's very important, and that's I notice also has changed, and where the AI and Kubernetes meet with each other. So that's very important. So okay, I just really wanted to know, like, what's a major Kubernetes trend people still don't fully understand?
Oh, what's a major Kubernetes trend people still default? I mean, I would. I mean, I don't know if I would call this a trend, but I think that fundamentally. Okay, actually, there is something I've been thinking about very recently. Let me give you a little bit of background, and then we can go into details. There seemed to be a race between all the cloud providers to announce support for like high scale Kubernetes clusters. So Google announced like support for 65,000 nodes last year. And then AWS, just like 2 weeks ago, they announced support for 100K nodes. And I am quite sure that Azure is working on something. At some point, they will come out with something. And what I have been seeing on like Reddit and online, and also from discussions with people when I go to like events, is when you tell people 65,000 or 100,000 nodes, like a lot of people, they raise their eyebrows. They're like why do we need this amount of scaling, right? Like who needs to run a 65,000 clusters? And I think that the part that people fundamentally don't understand is that all of these like high-scale Kubernetes clusters, in my opinion, are not meant for always running workloads. They're not meant for they're not meant for you to run your backend system on it and run like a 65,000 nodes that will be running 24 hours 7. If you really dig into the details of how these massive scale have been achieved by Google and AWS, most of the optimizations have been done on a rapid scaling, being able to scale up and scale down like very quickly, right? So scale up to what limits is not very important, but just being able to very quickly get the pods up and then get the nodes up and then scale them down very quickly is important. Why this is important? Well, that's essentially what you want from a system that you use for batch or for training or fine-tuning for machine learning, right? You need to be able to start your training workload, scale up super quickly to a massive number of nodes with a massive number of accelerators, run your training, and then once your training is done, scale down super quickly. And so I think that's fundamentally this trend is like people look at it as like a lot of people look at Kubernetes as like a static thing, as a static environment. You just like run it and then you run your workload there and you don't touch it. But if you're not in the data science space, you don't really see this like elasticity need for like massive scaling and upscaling and downscaling. And I think that's going to take a little bit of time for people to like kind of wrap their head around what does that actually mean. I think you're muted. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, downscaling and upscaling is very important because it connected to cost, right? So that is something important. It's okay because because when the small companies think about, okay, let's implement the Kubernetes, but okay, they have set it up, but to work on managing the whole infrastructure is very important, and we need someone who can, just work on that.
Of course.
And in that note, you worked as a tech advisor at Google for startups. So let's move this talk there, because I really wanted to know, and also our audience really wanted to know how you strategize everything, how you just advise those startups to use cloud in some specific way.
Yeah. So I worked with quite a lot of startups, and my generally speaking, my strategy is very simple. Security has to be like at the forefront of everything you do. I think we don't need to go over it, but the number of times startups build something, don't secure it properly from the beginning, and then eventually something goes wrong, like data get leaked, data gets stolen, things like that happens. That happened countless of times, right? So as a startup, you are as good as your weakest security point. And if you don't do things with security in mind, you risk like very big problems. The second thing is like a cloud is just an abstraction layer for how you use resources. So as a startup, your strategy should be around using the things that will give you the most value very quickly with the least amount of complexity possible. So I'm going to talk about Google Cloud here because that's the only thing I know. I never really position GKE or Kubernetes in front of startups. I usually go like start with Cloud Run. That's like very easy. You build containers, just chuck them into Cloud Run. It just works, right? And then when you get to the scale, when you need something that Cloud Run cannot do, then you go to Kubernetes, because at the end of the day, it's just a container. But the most important thing is you need to standardize the way you build and ship software around containers, because that's what can guarantee you the portability, that you can move things around from one system to another or from one platform to another easily. So that's number two. And I think number three is also like the thing with startups typically is that you would have, the founders, that what they want is they want to ship or deliver features very quickly to their end users. So they are in this like a mindset of reiterating very quickly and shipping things very quickly. But sometimes you might hire one or two people who are more used to working in like an enterprise environment where things work slightly slower. There is process, there is discussions, there is things that needs to be done. And it's all about kind of how do you push that mindset of rapid iteration. And in the mindset of rapid iteration, one of the killer points is usually getting stuck in technology choices, like getting stuck in which database I'm going to use, or which
Yeah.
pub sub system I'm going to use, or which storage system I'm going to use. And my advice is usually just go with the thing that gives you the easiest interface, that allows you to go quickly from an idea to something that works without spending too much engineering it. So these are like kind of the high level strategy, and then it depends really, of course, when on the startup what they're trying to achieve. Then we can get usually we get into more of the weeds of how things works.
Okay, yeah, that's really great 3 points every startup. So can you just tell us one experience in Google for startup as well, like some startup that you have been working on, or they are facing some of the issue like initially with their product, right? And then you have solved, and what's the problem and what's that solution you have, worked on?
Yeah, I remember this use case where so it's a startup that it's actually a Swedish-based startup, and they do they're like a sort of food waste startup. I think that they're like similar to there is a very known one called Too Good to Go. Essentially, what they do is that they partner with like restaurants, supermarkets, and stores that any like sort of establishment that sells food, and they allow those establishments to offer food that they're gonna throw away for like a heavily discounted price on their platform. So if you're like a cafe, and you close at 6 p.m. and you still have a bunch of like croissant left, you go at 4 p.m. and you go like, okay, like
Yeah.
a pack of 10 goes for like €2 or whatever. And then the users or the end users can just find it, like mapped on a like pinned on a map, and they can buy on the app and then go grab the food, right?
Wow.
And yeah, it's there are multiple startups in Europe doing this. Too Good to Go is the most known one. I think is American, but this particular one was like primarily targeting the Swedish market. And so one of the problems they faced initially was that they deployed their apps and they didn't use like a proper load balancer. So they just deployed their apps with a bunch of like public IP addresses. And they faced an issue where they started getting a lot of traffic from Russia, right? And it was clearly malicious traffic. It was clearly not like it was not legitimate traffic, and so they needed to block this. And so we got into a call. We started talking, and we do have a product on Google Cloud called Cloud Armor that can allow you to implement a sort of like a block list based on regions. So you can say, I want traffic to only come from, this particular region or whatever.
Yeah.
And they didn't implement it. So we had to go jump on a call and spend like 2 hours trying to basically quickly re-architect their system live without downtime to try to add this extra feature. And this goes back to like the whole idea of security, right? I mean, obviously, I don't blame them in the sense that like they wouldn't have known, because you cannot anticipate all potential problems that might happen in your system. But at least being aware of the options that you might have on a platform. And of course, they're not necessarily proficient on Google Cloud, so they don't know everything that is available on the platform.
Right.
So this is just an example of the kind of things that can, like the kind of mishaps that can happen. Another example, this is not something that's happened to me recently, but not something that happened to me personally, but recently there was this, I don't know, some data leak happening to some startup because they had a misconfigured Firebase allow, like a permission thing. So this kind of like you miss one simple detail and then you end up in very big troubles is very common actually in startups.
Yeah, so I have seen a lot these use cases, like whenever a small company or whether it's a big company as well, it doesn't matter. We will face these kind of issues. So what do you think?
It's a very good question. I think that first of all, do not panic because
Yeah,
everything has a solution.
yeah,
Second of all, I think that like the worst case scenario that can happen to you as a startup is in case something really goes wrong and you can't afford running your systems anymore, maybe having some sort of plan where you can take your system down and display a web page to your end users to say, we're down for maintenance or whatever, we're going to be back in, is always better than people experiencing downtime without them knowing what's happening. So basically communication is very important toward your end users. Making sure that your end users know what's going on, know that you are experiencing some sort of downtime or some sort of problems, and some sort of like expected time to repair or ETA is important. as part of like crisis management. And I think the third thing is essentially, instead of trying, like, usually this is one of the things that's happened to me before, is usually I end up talking to like the CTO or like the founding engineers, who feel that they are the only one responsible for whatever is going on.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, just like gather your team, ask everybody to drop everything, and then gather around the table and because like more brains will produce more ideas for sure. So that would be my advice for like kind of tackling this kind of situations.
Also, we have a lot of small startups. So, what's the best way to connect with the tech advisors from the Google or somebody who can help?
So the way which works at Google is that we have a cohort. So there is a Google Cloud for Startup program, which we run yearly, and it's like usually a program that lasts anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks. So you will have to look it up, like Google Cloud for Startups, and then you will see, and it's also per region. So you will see if there is like a cohort happening in your region, and it's application based. So you'll have to apply and get in. And then once you are in, then you get matched to like a tech advisor.
So,
That's usually how it works.
so do you have to have one product for your own, or you'll get a chance to build your startup in that cohort as well?
So the cohort I work with are usually the startups that already have something working. And
Okay.
I think that there are other probably programs that I'm not aware of that work with people that has like from an idea. But typically, if you are going from like an idea to an MVP, you
Yeah.
would probably be with an accelerator first before you get into like a Google program.
Okay, okay. So first, they can get into the accelerator. Okay. So do you know any program they can, first get in touch with? If somebody like wanted to get into, really want to build a startup or the product by using the cloud
I mean,
technologies.
that depends on where the people are, when the founders are, right? I would say if you have an idea, just get started, like build
Yeah.
something, and
Yeah.
then get it out and get people to try it first to see, like, validate the idea first before you spend too much time on like planning for it. I would say.
Okay, okay. That's a great advice. I think that will help a lot of startups as well, how they can, approach the problem. Because yeah, we have the solution for every problem. Because sometimes we have that burden in our mind. Okay, we have to resolve everything by our own. But the best thing is you can always ask for the help, and it's all about the ecosystem that we are into. And
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. So let's jump into like you've been to keynote speaker. You have spoken to a lot of conferences. You are always in KubeCons and SI days and most of the KCDs and all. And also you write the blogs on Medium. So can you tell us more about your branding, personal growth, how that helps, and what's the time that you think, okay, now I want to work on my personal growth, and that is something that I really love because when I was reading your Medium article, it is showing that you are really loving this whole thing, these conferences and talking on stage. So can you just tell us more about that?
Sure. I mean, public speaking is part of my job, right? As a developer advocate, that's like going to events and speaking about technology to people is part of the job, right? So that's something I've been actually doing since pretty much university time. I've always loved public speaking. I've always loved like knowledge sharing. Now I am in a privileged situation that allows me to be able to go to a lot of conferences in different parts of the world and speak to people, which is amazing. It's not for everyone because I think that the part that people don't see is all the work that goes behind the scene to prepare for these kind of events. So it's not like you just show up in events and you talk about something. Like there is quite a lot of work that goes into preparing for this kind of events. And as you said, like KubeCon, KCDs, and a lot of events that I go to, they are typically submission based, which means you submit a talk, and then you're one among hundreds or thousands of people submitting a talk, and then like you cross your fingers that your talk will be accepted, essentially. So, I mean, I think I have the part that people don't see is how many rejections you get, and I
Yeah.
officially have more rejections than actually acceptance. Like we just yesterday got a rejection from North
Yeah,
America,
KubeCon
from
and
KubeCon
it.
North
Yeah.
America. So there you go. So we're not the only ones. But I think that part of the job is just like the part that people see. I really enjoy it. It's fun to be able to like connect with people from around the world. Um, um, I love traveling personally, so that's also works super well for me because traveling and visiting different parts of the world is amazing. On top of this, I get to do that as part of my job is like a privilege. Um, but that's just one part of the job. The content creation part is also amazing, like being able to do the podcasts, record videos, write on Medium, do all these kind of things is also another amazing benefit, I would say, of this job because I get exposed to so many things. I get to see and experience so many things. So I get to like write about it. I don't always write only on my Medium blog. I'm also writing on the Google official cloud blog. I sometimes write on like the CNCF blog or sometimes on like the platform engineering community blog. But like I've always loved technical writing. I've always loved being able to write about technical things, and I'm actually in the process of designing. It's a long overdue. I want to design my own website, so I'm working on it like right now. So that's another one of those like amazing parts of the job of being able to like talk and write about things that you get to try and experiment with and test as part of the job. Um, the other, I mean, these are the two main things. I guess like the part that is visible is the speaking and writing. The part that is not visible is all the work that goes behind it because there is a lot of work actually to be able to like get to that stage where you can feel comfortable going on stage and talking about a topic. You really need to know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, see, when as someone like I review the CFP for the KubeCons and all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have lot of submission, lot of, and when we write CFP for our own, so it's a lot of hard work. What other person will like or not, right? How you can just write the whole topic in just few words. That is something very, uh, I think I can say it's a skill. You are
Yes.
presenting one topic that should be very interesting to
Yes.
just read, right? So yeah, you are right that we had to do a lot of work before jumping into the stage. So yeah, I also wanted to know what's your secret sauce for speaking.
I mean, like I don't really have a secret sauce. It just I think it's a skill that you develop over time. I didn't start with like big conferences when I started. I was doing like small kind of meetups, like small intimate like 30 40 person groups. I was doing also a lot of presentations in the companies I was working for internally. So I didn't really start immediately with public speaking. I think it's just a skill that you develop over time. I always consider speaking as a sort of like a performance art, a form of performance art. As like I think to make it interesting to the audience, there are a couple of ways you can do it, right? Like you could just script your entire talk, right? Like you can just script
Right.
it and then you can have it in your like speaker notes in your slides, and then you go on stage and then you just like skip through the slides
Yeah.
and read the speaker notes like that. That's one way of doing it, and it certainly works for certain situations. If you're doing like a keynote where you have a fairly limited amount of time and you don't want to like you have like a story you want to tell and you don't want to like necessarily miss something. Although I don't
Yeah.
personally do it, but I think a lot of people it works for them. I am more on the improvising side of things.
Yeah.
I know the high level topics that I need to touch on, and I would go on stage and improvise because what I want to do is I want to also be able to like make a joke or make a side comment and kind of like try to connect with the audience in a way, right? And I think that's the part of like the performance part of public speaking that I really enjoy. I'm not great at it. I'm always improving, but I think as long as you enjoy being able to talk about something that you are very passionate about, and also you uh, very very important to emphasize that you really know what you're talking about. I think that's something that like that's the secret. I don't really think about it as I don't think about it as a duty. I think about it as a privilege, and I
Right.
I do it as part of being privileged to be given an audience and a stage, right? And I just try to do my best, essentially.
Yeah, that's really important because scripting something and then you are prioritizing, okay, when I will be on stage, then the most important thing is I wanted to connect with the audience. Because sometimes what happen, whatever the script you have in mind, sometimes that will not work with the audience. You have to change a lot of things, right?
Yes,
That
yes,
really happens. So
definitely.
I also tell people just recite some of the topics that you really wanted to talk about and then just speak about that thing
Exactly,
naturally. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Now, I really wanted to know, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right or not. So, it's a Kilimanjaro mountain, right?
Yes,
Yeah, so
Kilimanjaro.
you have climbed that 1 month ago. So, how was that experience, and what's the one thing that taught you, right? Not that tech and cloud never taught you.
Yes. So I think I have to give you a little bit of the background so where that came from, right?
Yeah.
I am an outdoor person. I love nature. I love hiking. I love running. I do run like a lot. That's like one of the main sports I practice. I do love being outdoors. I do love nature. Uh, I love being outdoors. Kilimanjaro is the highest peak in Africa. It's 5,980 meters above sea level. It came as a part of a trip with a friend of mine. So I have a friend of mine who left Morocco 2 years ago, and she took a trip on a bike around Africa. So she left Morocco and she traveled all across West Africa, all the way to the south of Africa, and then all the way across the east of Africa to basically Kenya. And then from Kenya, she came down to Tanzania. And then the idea was that Tanzania would be her last step or last stop in this trip. And we would all meet there and we will all climb Kilimanjaro together. So we were 11 people and we took a guided tour. But you cannot go to Kilimanjaro without a guide. You need a guide, right? So it was a 70 days hike, 60 kilometers.
What? 17.
No, seven
Seven,
days, seven
seven.
days
Okay.
hike, 60
7 days.
kilometers, 4,800 meters of elevation gain. What it taught me is like what it taught. I mean, this probably is cliche, but it taught me what it taught me is it doesn't matter how high up you go in a mountain, there is always a way down. Like at
Yeah.
some point, you will be going down, right? So if you think like if you are climbing or you are hiking and you think that there is like a steep and it's never ends, at some point it will end and at some point you will find your way down, right? So it puts things into perspective in the sense that it doesn't matter like how difficult things are, they will eventually get easy. So that was one of the toughest experiences. I've done a lot of mountains before. This was not my first mountain. I've done mountains before, but this was probably one of the toughest one I have done, because like you are basically hiking for 5 days and then you get to the point where you still have to hike to get to the peak. So you are
Yeah.
already very tired and you don't sleep properly because you're sleeping in a tent and it's hot and cold and all these kind of things. And then you get to the last step where you have to like make the final push to get to your destination. So it was a really cool experience. I'm very glad that I get to do it.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Like this trip with the friends, and yeah, and also you took it very like in a very positive way that when the things get difficult, it will be easy
Yes,
at some point.
yes,
So
yeah. It doesn't matter how difficult it gets; it will eventually get easy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a great advice. Also, just wanted to know, we are left with the time, but just wanted to know, most of the people wanted to, uh, connect with you on LinkedIn. And so what's the one thing that still you didn't mention on LinkedIn?
Oh, what is the one thing that I still didn't mention on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Um, oh, that's a very good question. I don't know. I'm preparing for another adventure somewhere in September. I think I'm gonna publish about it when I do it. I don't want to spoil it now. But I mean, I think, oh yeah, I think the only thing I don't mention in LinkedIn, but I do it on my Twitter, is I love cooking. I love food. I'm a big foodie. I mostly run and do sports so I can eat more. So if you follow me on Twitter, you will see all my, like the people who follow me on Twitter, they see one thing specifically is when I go home to Morocco. All of my tweets become about food because that's all my tweets about is all the stuff I eat when I'm in Morocco. So like that no technology, no tech, nothing. Just food.
Wow, that's so unique. So that's the food for the love, right?
Yes. I'm a
Yeah.
big foodie. I'm looking forward actually to go to Hyderabad because I've been told that Hyderabad biryani is one of the best in India. So I've been
Yeah.
told.
Yeah. So, guys, everyone, just to get to know you, Abdel is coming to India this August for KubeCon India. So, you
Yes.
have the chance to meet Abdel there. And I'm also so excited to meet you there and hope we will go for the biryani.
Yes, I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to come. Yes.
Yeah. So we are going to wrap this up. So to the wrapping this podcast, any one advice you really wanted to give to the audience?
Embrace Gen AI. It's gonna be around us for the foreseeable future. So instead of fighting it and being afraid it will take your job, just embrace it. The more you embrace it, the better it's gonna be in the future.
You know, that's the best advice I get till now.
Awesome.
Everyone is saying that do the hard work and this and that, and that's a very practical thing you have just said.
I'm glad I helped.
Yeah. Because it's very important. So, okay, I think we need to wrap this up. And thank you so much, Abdul, for coming. And I'll see you in KubeCon Hyderabad.
Thank you, Monica. I'm looking forward.
Yeah, bye bye.